Hello, Wear Many Hats listeners. It's your host, Mark Robinson here. And today I am very excited because when I first agreed to join as the host of Wear Many Hats, there was an individual that I rang before anybody else and asked him whether or not he would be a guest on the show. He was very excited at that time and he agreed. It's just taken a very, very long time to get him here and have a chat with us. But today I'm joined by the IWFM Chair of People Management, a former Pattern Makers Young Facilities Manager of the Year, and also the current Facilities Manager for DB Cargo. I'm joined today by Wayne Young, a fellow Matlow, and someone that I'm pleased to say is a friend. Hello, Wayne.
Hello, Mark. Thanks for inviting me.
How's it going?
Yeah, very well, thanks.
Now, that was a good intro, wasn't it?
Yeah, you did well there.
What do you think?
It was it's probably one of the better ones I've heard.
Exactly. Well, I won that 20 quid straight after, yeah?
Yeah, 25, wasn't it?
Well, I'll take 20. So, what are you doing in London today? You've got quite an interesting evening, I believe.
Yeah, candlelight dinner. I think you're coming tonight, aren't you?
Yeah, just me and you, isn't it?
Yeah, and Ethan.
And Ethan. Yeah. Well, we need someone to carry the bags, don't we? No, in all seriousness, please tell everybody what we're doing today because it is relevant to, obviously, the show.
Yeah. So in London today, we've got the Young Pattern Makers dinner this evening. So that's a dinner we hold annually. We're in the Worshipful Company of Pattern Makers, where we invite people under the age of 40 to come to a dinner.
Yeah, I had to pay, by the way, people. So.
Yeah. It's not free for anybody. Everybody's got to pay.
Yeah.
But it's a really good opportunity for young people within the livery company to get involved and understand a little bit more and kind of meet and network as well. So it's a really good evening. And likewise, it's great to have you both come along as well.
No, we're really looking forward to it. And obviously, we're going to touch on this a little bit later in the show, but I know that it's something that you're incredibly passionate about.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, firstly being a former winner of the award, but also, I know that learning, development, giving people the opportunity within facilities management to progress is really important to you. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think I look back on my career and think a lot of kind of the progression I've made in my career has come from being able to highlight areas of progression and development personally, but also some really good managers and leaders that have seen that opportunity for me as well. So.
And mentors and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll dive into all of that.
Sounds good.
We'll dive into all of that. Okay, listen, the way I always like to start the show is for our guests to give us a bit of an indication of how their career has gone over the last 10 years. How did it start? What did you do? Talk us through it.
Yeah, so FM for me, like a lot of your previous guests and most people within the industry, was a career I fell into. So I was came out of school at the age of 18. My world was set on joining the Navy. Taking a full term commission, joining the surface fleet, etc. Sat all this stuff and passed all this stuff I needed to do that. And then it just never happened.
Right.
But then what I did do in between that was become a reservist, and that was great. I really enjoyed my time as a reservist. But I didn't have a job other than doing that. I taught sailing and all the really cool jobs, but not really adult jobs.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, in the actual Navy, it's a little bit more difficult. You don't really have fun, to be honest. You're just getting battered from morning to night.
I just did it for the drinking, as most Matlows will
attest. Yeah. Well, that's why we are the way we are, let's be honest. Hey.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so I had a great time with the reserves but I needed to settle down and become an adult.
Can I just expand on that? Do you mind?
Yeah, go for it.
Did that time within the reserves teach you any essential skills that you now utilise in your working life?
Yeah, so a lot of my leadership qualities and skills that I put back to kind of what I learned in the Navy and did within the reserves.
Okay.
I look at those times and think and can pinpoint skills and qualities that I hold now daily in terms of the way I interact with people and the way I talk to people that are very much come from those times where I've always been in a position where, not so much recently, but the people that I lead have generally been older than me and probably more skilled than I am.
Yeah.
And when I joined the Navy and did the reserve piece, I was 18 years old. Yeah. I was a young officer, but still had responsibilities within that.
Yeah, of course.
So I've always been used to leading people who are older and more skilled. And because of that, I've always had the ability to be able to mix with people and talk to people and break down barriers and those kind of type things. And that's definitely something that I've used continuously through my 10 plus years in FM as well.
Yeah, so that's proved to be really beneficial for you then, in terms of your career.
Okay. And the reality is a lot of the FM industry is made up of ex-forces people as well.
It is, very much so.
So being able to speak the language is really helpful when you're talking to an engineer or you're talking to a contract manager or whoever that might be. You're able to just break down that barrier by being able to speak a language they're familiar with.
Yeah, I would agree that I do find that piece a lot easier from my time in the forces. Yeah. Because you're forced to interact with people. That's the reality. You have to. You can't just sit back. You've got to work as a team, because if you don't, you're training not to die. That's the reality.
That's not where you want to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you're getting wet feet in the Navy, there's something wrong, right?
Exactly. I got wet feet a lot, actually. That's probably why I left. To be fair, but anyway, obviously, listen, I interrupted you. I do apologise. I just thought that was quite an important piece.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your career.
Yeah. So I started my FM career as a caretaker. So I started within the caretaker role, moving chairs around. Became really good at fixing walls and things because I worked in a school in Bradford.
Really?
And the students just seem to take pride in taking walls down with feet and that kind of stuff. But it was really good because from that role, I was able to understand kind of a lot of the skill base within FM. So yeah, it was a really pivotal. I think it was one of those roles I look back and think if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have probably taken to the career.
Really?
As well as I did, but also I don't think I'd have progressed as well because it's definitely one of those roles I think where you look back and you think that was a really good grounding for kind of the FM industry.
So it's like an anchor role, really, wasn't it?
And a lot of my passion for career development of other people and the young people within FM and that kind of type of stuff comes directly from that because I was sat there as a caretaker, quite young, going, actually, this job's quite good. It's interesting.
Yeah.
What can I do next with this job? Where can I go next?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I went, okay, so how do I make that next step? Yeah. And I was lucky that I had some really good people around me who said, if you want to do this, this is the way to go.
Right.
So it was definitely the role that started the journey for me.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to have done it, and I'm glad to have been a caretaker and what I hope to do with we touched briefly on the IWFM stuff I do and stuff like that. My hope is that I can be a voice for a lot of other caretakers, cleaners, security guards, those kind of type people who are young or starting in their FM career and thinking, actually, where's next? How do I make this a long, fulfilling career?
Yeah.
Over which FM hopefully will be for me now.
Yeah.
It was really good, right?
Yep.
And then from that, I moved to JLL as a facilities coordinator, working on the first direct bank contract. That was a really interesting contract.
I bet it was, So
first director, quite a quirky bank, and working from their head office in Leeds. And no day was the same. One day I'd be walking in, it'd be your pretty standard office type environment. The next day there'd be two old grannies rolling around on singing naked and doing all, because they were really keen on their employee engagement. So you'd be doing all sorts, and then the next day you'll be overseeing them putting up a helter-skelter in the middle of the car park with a sandy beach.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was crazy. But again, it's one of those things you think, that's exposure to different elements of the role.
It is
that you'd never get anywhere else. So, I was very lucky.
Yeah, within a different industry as well.
Yeah. So banking and that kind of type stuff. So it was good. It was a crazy role, but good.
Yeah. How long were you there for? Wayne?
So not long. I was there we chupied over, and the chupy of the role wasn't going in the right direction for me. So I've been quite driven, as I've kind of already touched on. But where I wanted to go next, that wasn't the direction I wanted to take.
Yep.
So I looked for another role. Went JLL to Savills, and that was kind of my first kind of step into managing people in FM. So I had a couple of teams of security guards, cleaners over an estate, on multi-site estate as well, throughout West Yorkshire.
And how did you find that in terms of that transition from just kind of looking after yourself and a small amount of people, but then suddenly you're managing quite a big team?
I like managing people. I see it as and I hate using the word manage. I like leading people.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I see it as a absolute privilege.
Yeah.
So it was nice to step back into kind of that leadership piece and kind of leading people and developing people and that kind of type of stuff. So I really took to it really well.
Yeah,
and flourished in it, and because I was excited by it and
enthusiastic, because enthusiasm gets you a long way. I really believe that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really do. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the key parts in my career that I always look at in terms of I'll never say no. Yeah. I'll always say yes to most things and
figure it out later.
Yeah. Gets me into real situations where I'm scratching my head going, why did I say yes to this? But in reality, it's always worked out really well in the end.
Okay.
So Savills was good, multi-site, and I was looking after kind of leisure complexes.
Yep.
Retail estates, that kind of type of stuff. So a really broad range of property to get my head into, and it's a managing agency piece. So I was working with service charges and developing service charges and that kind of type of stuff as well. So another skill to the cap as such, which was really good, really good. Yeah. And then an opportunity came up with Arcus and the Sainsbury's contract, and that was quite good as well. So that was
that predominantly sort of warehousing and distribution then?
No, that was retail. Yeah. So
really?
Yeah.
Right.
So
that's hard work as well, isn't it? Let's be honest, it is.
Yeah. And that was a really, really cool role, right? And I got some, and that was probably, if I was to look back on kind of one of the roles that really propelled my career forwards, that was definitely one of them. So
really,
I looked after 9 supermarkets.
Wow.
Across North Yorkshire. So I'd had like Darlow and places like that.
Darlow?
Yeah,
Did
Darlington,
you?
Whitby.
Ooh, challenging.
Saltburn by the sea. Yeah. So I got to go to the seaside every month and that kind of type of
Fish
stuff.
and chips?
Yeah, every time. I used to have a nice little journey into if my old boss will be listening here. So I used to go like to Whitby and then go to Saltburn, but stop for fish and chips on the way.
Yeah, might as well drive down through Scarborough on the way home, mate.
Yeah. Get all the fish and chip shops.
Yeah. Come back via Sutton Bank, in a Thirsk.
Yeah, exactly. But it was good. And I was really lucky in that role because I had a really, really good manager who really saw that I was keen to push myself forward, saw the enthusiasm, and kind of gave me the opportunity to develop in that role as well. So I did. Right. I was lucky enough when he went on holiday and stuff, I'd step in and become zone manager, so looking after the whole of the north of the UK and that stuff in his absence.
Not a small responsibility that either.
No.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, it was. And I was only young then, so I would have been 26, 27 maybe.
Wow.
When I did that. So, and I look back on it now and a little bit older thinking, wow, how did I deal with that?
That's quite age? Daunting. Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things I just said yes again and I just got on with it. Yeah. And probably the highlight of my time at Arcus was when I led FM for Sainsbury's at Christmas.
Oh, really?
So everything that we were doing in preparation to make sure we delivered Christmas correct as a national organisation from an FM perspective, I led that project.
Wow!
And that was a really, really hard project to deliver.
Yeah.
And it was only via the fact that it was that retail becomes ridiculously busy at Christmas. We all know that, right? Yeah. And Sainsbury's were keen to make sure it was right, and as is probably everybody. It was a really interesting place to be.
Quick, just for my own personal viewpoint, how long did that project take? Like, when do you start that from a retail perspective?
So, if I remember rightly, it was probably we started the ball rolling August. Maybe end of July, August.
So you're thinking about Christmas in August. I bet that's quite tough, actually.
That Christmas wasn't as good as the previous Christmases, other Christmas, because I was Christmased out. Come Christmas Day, I was right. I'm done with this. It's time to rest.
Don't you dare put that Christmas song on. Why you noddy older? You're all kinds of bother.
Yeah. But it was good. It was good. And it was definitely one of those ones where you think, at the age of 26, 27, going into that position of seeing to Christmas, speaking directly to the head of FM for Sainsbury's and that kind of thing, you think, did really well with that.
Yeah, so that's quite an interesting journey up till sort of that age. So obviously you decided to move on from Arcus and then you found yourself...
Hermes.
Yeah, Hermes. Which is now...
Every.
Yes.
Yeah, and again, that was one of those leaps of faith, I suppose, where you think, right, I'm going to step into this.
Was that to challenge yourself then? Was that to say, right, I've led this project now, which was a massive project. I believe I'm ready to do something else. So I want ultimate control. I want to impart my vision. Was it that kind of?
I think it was born from a little bit of confidence coming off the Christmas thing, and and the journey I'd gone in Arcus. So there was a little bit of confidence there to say, you know what, actually, I'm ready for the next step.
Yeah.
The Hermes role was ideal for that in terms of stepping into a client-side role, taking complete ownership of facilities management within a large and kind of complex organisation.
And that was a national role, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So how many sites were you responsible for?
So when I started, I think we had something like 30 sites.
Wow.
And then by the time I was left, we were edging on something like 200, including some of our smaller depots and stuff that we were starting to bring on board and what have you. So,
and were you because you would have been heavily involved, I'm guessing, in that growth and opening those new facilities and things like that.
Yeah, and because I've always seen it as a facilities manager should be the one that's there at the start, going, do you know what, actually, let's make this building something.
Yeah.
I always push myself into that, and rightly or wrongly, I found myself very busy because of it.
Yeah.
But I was making sure we were delivering the best work environment for our people.
Yeah.
And being there at the start was enabling me to do that.
Yeah.
We did. And in that role, I did depots right through to head office refurbs, that kind of type stuff. So I did all sorts of project stuff within it, as well as managing just the day-to-day, toilets are broken, lights are not working kind of type jobs as well. But I had a really, really good team as well within that who delivered most of the day-to-day stuff and let me get on with kind of, right, how do we direct this into the right delivery model?
Yeah, and obviously, of course, it was whilst you were at Hermes that you won the Pattern Makers Young Facilities Manager of the Year award, which I would assume you were very proud of. I mean, you must be. That's considering the journey you'd been on. That's something to be proud of.
Yeah, and to put some context behind the award, the award is judged by some real powerhouses in the industry, and on my judging panel at the time were people like Martin Pickard. And people like some really, really influential people within the industry. So I was really blown away when I got it through the first stage and was invited to interview, and I was like, even if I've got this far, I've done well.
You're happy with it? Yeah, of course.
A lad from up north, who started FM as
I had to get his donkey out of London.
Well, I got delayed on the train coming down for the interview, and you can imagine what I was like. But as a northerner who has nothing to do with London or hasn't really had anything to do with London, to then get through to a livery company and them have some interest in kind of me, I was blown away by just being invited to interview. So to win the award following the interview, I was made up. It's one of the best things I've ever done. And following it, the things I've done within the livery company and the doors that I've opened because of being part of that group of people, it's accelerated my career even further than where I thought.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Now before, I like to do this now, before we move on to the second step part of your career, let's just focus on up till, the sort of young FM Manager of the Year scenario. During that period, obviously started your career up till then, how important were mentors on that journey? And are there any you want to name check whilst on the podcast?
Mentors-wise, pivotal. Yeah, I think anybody who is listening to this podcast and sees any talent in anybody, I'd encourage you to go and have a chat with them. And because I look back and think of all the times where some really impressive leaders have just said, "Do you want to have a go at doing this?" Yeah. And actually, where I've been going, I'd love to have a go at doing that. Just them coming to me and going, "Do you want to have a go at this?" has opened that door for me to have a go. Yeah. And I think as a young person, sometimes you're a little bit scared to put your hand up.
I agree. Without a doubt. Yeah.
I'll have a go at that. Yeah. If anybody who's listening who thinks, do you know what, I see some potential in somebody, I'd encourage you to go and have that conversation and say, look, what do you actually want to have a go at? And as leaders, we should all be doing that. But the truth of it is, we rarely get the time to do it properly.
That's true. Yeah. Time is probably one of the biggest hurdles, I think, to trying to develop people, because we're all busy people.
Yes. Yeah. And I think just those small conversations, you might be changing the output of that person's career forever.
You could do.
And I definitely look upon some of those opportunities, like the Christmas and the zonal stuff, and the stuff I did within Savills and what have you, and some of the people who have approached me and said, do you want to have a go? Have definitely taken me from being a caretaker to where I am now, and all the stuff that I'm involved in within that.
Right.
That would be kind of, so yeah, I think people who can influence other people's careers are really important through that journey, especially in those earlier years of somebody's career.
Okay.
Definitely. But ongoing as well. So I quite often reach out to people. And
so you would offer that advice to young people moving into the industry?
Absolutely.
Put yourself out there.
Yeah, don't be afraid of putting your hand up. That would be my one. If somebody ever said to me, what's your one piece of advice you'll give to young people in the industry is, don't be afraid to put your hand up.
Yeah. Because
the industry needs young people to put their hand up and get involved. So yeah, that would be my one piece of advice. And something I do quite often now and again is put my hand up, and I'm just not great at saying no.
Without doubt. Yeah. So in terms of up till this, kind of part of your career, what was the most challenging aspect for you? Was there anything that stands out that you're like, God, that was hard, and it really pushed me to my limits, but I got it done?
Probably lots. And I think it's sometimes a bit like childbirth. You move past them, and I've never, obviously.
I was going to say,
but my wife has, and we have a long conversation.
She's told you all about it.
She's told me all about it. But I can imagine it's very similar in terms of that. And when you have children, you kind of forget about the sleepless nights and all that kind of type stuff.
And then you decide to have another one quite randomly, and you're like,
I don't know why I did that.
No.
But you kind of forget those painful bits. But there's a few I've definitely taken as lessons.
Right.
And those are the ones that I think are important. Those experiences are lessons for the future, right?
Yeah. So you've taken what at the time were probably perceived negatives and turned them into positives.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah. So things like challenging behaviours and from team members and that kind of type stuff. Yeah. Those kind of situations where you're like coming away from it thinking, wow, how do I deal with this?
Yeah.
And actually, those are all things that I think probably most leaders and managers go through.
Yeah.
I think back and think that was an interesting situation. Probably. So when I was at Savills and we were doing silly, we had buildings with high-rise car parks. I remember we were having to write a suicide plan, and I remember sat in my office thinking, I'm 23.
Yeah.
How on earth how am I thinking about what happens if somebody wants to try and commit suicide off the top of my car park and then trying to then prepare a plan as to what would happen. And I think, you look at that and you think, okay, so that was a moment in my career which was quite a challenge and thinking about
But the interesting thing about that is things like shopping centre car parks, high-rise car parks, it's actually something that happens a lot.
Yeah,
it really
is unfortunate.
Yeah,
unfortunately that does happen, and there is and all those people that have to work through those plans and think about those plans, but more harrowingly has to deal with that, and that's where the FM industry really is that glowing piece of it's impressive, isn't it, that we've got an industry of such talented people have to deal with a broad range of skills.
I completely agree. I mean, it is. I hate to say jack of all trades because it tends to lighten people's achievements. But the reality is that's exactly what it is. It's a significant volume of professionals that can deliver multiple skills across a client, site, estate, whatever, and that's, I don't think we give that the credit that it deserves sometimes, because, being able to manage multiple things is impressive.
Yeah, and you kind of look at kind of the journey the FM industry's gone in the last 5 years with COVID and the rebounds of all that kind of type stuff, all that stuff that the FM industry went through to prepare and return people to the workplace. that's the kind of impressive stuff. And I think prior to that, we were definitely more the secret service of the business world. And now we are coming out that other side, and we're not so much James Bond. We're more like Moneypenny kind of type roles. And that,
009 and a half.
Yeah, we're definitely more vocal, and I think it's a good place to be because there is so many good people in our industry, amazing things on a day-to-day basis. So.
Okay, cool. So one more question before we move on to kind of not really the second part of your career, but as you've advanced, would you as you were going through your career, did you have a network of people that you would speak to, that you would bounce ideas off, that you would talk to about problems, so that you could learn how to do things differently? And
network in the traditional sense, no. So I only started doing like LinkedIn and things on the back of winning the award.
Right. Okay. Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was like, I've heard about this LinkedIn thing, and I thought I'll get involved with it, and and I started getting involved, and then from kind of winning the award.
But up until that point, not really.
No.
So you kind of got through on your own recognizance, really.
Yeah. And I'd build relationships within kind of the teams within our work and that kind of type stuff. But no kind of broader sense of network.
Okay.
That's all come following winning the award, really, and kind of in winning the award, seeing how pivotal network is and how that looks for kind of career development and growth. And I really enjoy just being talking to people, as you well know.
So. I do. Yeah. It's good though. It's good, I think. So obviously, from winning the award, that kind of takes us to quite an interesting role. I know that you and I have talked about it many times when you were at Just Eat. And it was quite interesting because you went through multiple challenges there in different ways. Well, tell us a little bit about that role.
Yeah, so I joined the logistics delivery operations side of the business. And
another jump into kind of a different...
That's
what I quite respect about you, Wayne. You haven't... and this isn't to say that other people are wrong for doing it, because that's not the case. But what I quite respect about you is every move you've made, it tends to be in a different industry. It's still facilities management, but a different industry within facilities management. So you always seem to be expanding your horizons.
Yeah, and I think, because I often say the FM industry is a family. I think we all do FM stuff, doing different things for different business, but we're all absolutely delivering FM.
Yeah.
So regardless of kind of what industry you work in, I think FM is FM, and having worked in quite a few industries now and having the exposure to a few industries, it's very indifferent, right? So I joined Just Eat having never had experience of kind of technology, although Hermes was a technology business.
It was kind of that gig economy as well.
Yeah.
So when you joined, there was a lot of noise about that too at the time, I believe.
Yeah. And the Just Eat logistics part was different, and we set out to be different and do the right thing. And
I thought it was really cool, by the way.
I loved working for Just Eat, and we had a really good time working there, and we had a really quality team as well. And the good thing about that was we employed our careers, and everybody was committed. Joining Just Eat was great. They hadn't had any FM experience around their properties. So they were looking for somebody to come in and devise what FM looked like for them.
Yeah.
So it was a blank notebook as such. They'd done some stuff, but to set the business up for the future, they needed somebody to come in and go, right, okay, this is the direction we need to go. And it was a really good opportunity to go in and develop what that looked like from there. It was good. And we grew by a couple of properties in my time there. There weren't massive properties. There weren't overly complicated properties.
Yeah, well, they're just in the weirdest places, weren't they?
City centres, really, mostly, weren't they?
Really just random, you know.
Yeah. And train railway
under train
arches
bridges
and stuff. It was a challenging estate because the property we needed was city centre location. You can never really find nice logistics stuff in that kind of area. So some of it needed a lot of attention and care. It was good. It was good, and it was nice to be part of a team that wanted to do the right thing as well. So it was in a good place to be. I look back on that, and it was an interesting business to work for, right? And,
and
a really lively company to work for.
Yeah. Did you ever meet Snoop Dogg?
No, unfortunately not. Or Katy Perry.
Really?
I did meet Katy Perry's doll. So on the old advert.
Oh, really?
Katy Perry's doll. Yeah.
Was it there? Was it?
It was in our head office. Yeah. So,
really?
Yeah. It was. Yeah.
Bloody hell, Snoop! What's going on?
I know. Yeah.
Could have put yourself out there, mate.
I was going to try and bring them along, but they just wouldn't come.
What's going on? You know, big old Wayne was there, don't you? Come on.
Yeah, exactly,
What's going on?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that obviously, what we'll do, we'll come back to the IWFM because I know that you're heavily involved in that. But let's just have a quick chat about the role that you're doing now.
Yeah. So again, a new industry, rail. So I joined DB 3 months ago, so still relatively new into the role.
Yeah.
And again, a business who is doing really well and has got lots of development opportunity there.
Yeah.
And they wanted somebody to come along and have a look at their FM and develop the FM strategy for the future. So I'm right in the right knee depth into that at the moment and looking at kind of what we're doing around FM and developing FM for the future.
It seems to be your USP, that, to be fair, that, you know, coming in and then developing, I guess, a facilities framework for organisations that they can move forward with.
Yeah, I've been lucky to. So the Hermes role was a bit like that.
Yeah.
We needed to develop what the future looked like, and then the Just Eat, and I quite like the idea of that because I quite like going in and having to being able to develop what I think is the right strategy for that business.
Well, there's a creative edge to it, isn't there? You know, you're not going in and just working with policies and procedures that are already in place. You're implementing the policies and procedures.
Yeah.
You're devising the strategy. You're, bringing in the people in the right roles to make sure that it can be delivered appropriately.
Yeah.
So there's an element of ownership there, I would say.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the thing that I like the most is the ownership of it and the responsibility and the accountability for making sure we do it right. And I think looking back on my career and I think having the industry experience I've got, i.e. multiple industries, that kind of type of stuff, that really plays nicely into
I would agree with that. Yeah, it gives you your insights would be very, there's elements of added value in certain industries that you can supplant and utilise there that maybe hadn't been thought of.
Yeah.
Which would prove to be really useful.
Correct. And like, so, for example, some of the stuff I'm looking at the moment, I'm directly pulling it out from my kind of, some of it's from my caretaker days, some of it's from my education and those kind of background days, and some of it's from Hermes and so on and so forth. And Just Eat. And so everything is coming into it, and it's, I am lucky to have experienced lots of different industries.
You're like the Frankenstein of facilities management,
but better looking.
Yeah. I was using Frankenstein as an analogy, rather than you look like Frankenstein.
I'll just push that bolt back.
Yeah. He's going to give me a crack after this podcast, people. Okay, so that's fantastic. So listen, let's get down to the crux of it. Tell us a little bit. I mean, obviously, I know that you're very involved with IWFM. I know a large part of that is about young people within the facilities. Tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing, and what the future looks like with respect to that.
Yeah. So IWFM are very much a part of kind of that piece. For me, since winning the award, I've wanted to use it as the award with the pallet makers. I've wanted to use that as a voice box as such to encourage young people in the industry, encourage people who are at the start of their career to look up. And if they're really focused on doing what they want to do further beyond kind of the role they've got at the moment, to look up and look how they can do that, and encourage managers and leaders in the industry to also help them on that journey. Okay. So I took a role within the committee for the People Management Special Interest Group with the IWFM.
Right.
I think I've been doing that for 3-4 years now. Okay. And then kind of last year was elected as the chair for the People. What was People Management, we're now People Development Special Interest Group. Right. And that's purely down the route of I want to use that again as an opportunity to how, as an industry, we can better that future FM piece. Because I think the FM industry is full of skilled, talented people from all ages and all walks of life. And it's the ones at the start of the career that are the future for that. And I once read a statistic that there was I don't know if it's still right, but something like 75% of the industry was made up of people who were 55 plus. And you consider that's 20 years, the majority of our industry will retire.
That's a lot, yeah.
And we need to be in a position to better that. And I'm coming out of that young FM background now, in terms of I'm getting older and that kind of type stuff. But there is still far too many people who find FM career as, well, find it by accident.
Yeah.
Everybody you talk to, how do you start an FM? Oh, I fell into it, or I was doing this and then I did that.
Yeah.
And I think there's an opportunity for people, for the industry to be more vocal, and the IDFM are really focusing on this as well, for people choosing FM as a career of choice, whether that be out of school or university, college, those kind of type things. But also capturing those people who are at the start of their career doing cleaning, security, whatever that looks like, administration. But actually, how do you take those people and develop them and develop a pathway for the future? And that's kind of where my committee comes in terms of how we do that and what that looks like from being a caretaker, cleaner. What's that personal development look like for the future?
Let me ask you a question. I haven't asked anybody else, and I'm going to put you on the spot.
Steady.
Okay. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Wayne. Let's say you're in charge of the whole FM piece in the UK.
Okay.
Right. You've then got to design the perfect route into FM for young people. What would that look like for you?
It's a really good question, and I'd be lying to say it's not something I've thought about.
You have? Oh, right, okay.
Because, I think you've got to start with young people. You've got to start where encourage that. So I think the apprenticeship stuff is really good, and it's a really strong route into FM. Yeah. But that doesn't capture them early enough. We need to be going into primary schools. We need to be talking to children in year 6 about some of the cool stuff FM does, and not about cleaning toilets and that kind of touch, because they're not going to be interested by that. No. But what they are going to be interested about is, we look after Big Ben. We look after all these massive properties and football stadiums and that kind
zoos.
Of all this other stuff that actually FM is entwined with heavily. And we need to be capturing those people there, or children there, and developing that through the school time as well. I think design technology is a really good way to do that, because it focuses in those kind of areas. So that would be one route. The other route would be those people who take roles as cleaners, caretakers, security guards, those kind of type things, and actually giving them a clear, defined path through FM. What does the next step look like? What does that training piece look like? And how do we develop you using the IWFM stuff and the training stuff the IWFM has to develop those individuals to be CEOs, if that's what they want to be.
So would you say that, the industry would benefit from contractors having training academies, for example, so that the people that are starting these roles, such as cleaning and security, have a pathway?
Yeah, and I think that the IWFM can really develop the industry as a whole, but it's down to individual businesses as well, and it's down to individual businesses to be able to develop their teams to take those next steps within their company. And it's good for companies because you've got that retention, you've got that in-house development bit as well. I'm seeing a lot of companies starting to do training centres, and I think it's great, because I think that's exactly what needs to happen. People who are in a business being given tailored and realistic training to develop them forwards. And I think
I like to call it creating opportunities. Yeah, because I think that's what you do. I think you can.
Are you creating opportunities? Because opportunities exist, right? Because
I think you are, because if you give people the skills, you give them the ability to apply for and win those opportunities. Yeah. So by training, you're creating opportunities, because without that training, they would never be able to apply for it, because they wouldn't have the requisite skill set, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I think it's down to, individual businesses to invest in their people, and have a real route for identifying talent. Because I think that's sometimes where it goes wrong, because just because the quietest person doesn't put their hand up.
I think that's where it's important, right? Yeah. It's identifying talent. Yeah. And I think there is lots of talented people in the industry, and we come across them on a day-to-day basis in all the roles we do. It's identifying that talent and being able to do something with it.
Exactly.
And that's where training centres are really important, I think, because then you can go, actually, you're somebody for the future within the industry, and not just looking. And you've obviously got to look commercially. It's the right choice for the business.
Well, it's also the individual as well, because a lot of the time, if you're going to develop somebody into a managerial role, supervisory role, team leader role, anything along those lines, there's an investment of time from them as well, which would generally sit outside of their work. So they've got to have that desire too. So it's complex.
It's very complex, and that's where businesses having training centres makes it somewhat easier.
Completely agree.
I think it's something that I see more and more businesses doing it, and it's something that I think is really good. And more businesses that do it creates more opportunity for individuals, more opportunity for them as a business, and more opportunity for us as an industry to grow and develop and
I completely agree.
Set ourselves up for the next 20 years of development of whatever looks like.
Do you know something, Wayne? We've talked about this as well. Okay, because we're the whole purpose of Wear Many Hats, as you know, is to provide a vehicle for individuals such as yourself that are successful in the industry to impart their wisdom on the next generation, to give them some insights and so on and so forth. And one of the things that we thought about was, are we getting them early enough? Is there an opportunity for us to do? Because the young people today, they're far different to what we were like when we were young. They're very technically driven. And, well, I mean, I know how to manage an iPhone, but I don't know how to manage one as well as Ethan. Do you know what I mean? I mean, Ethan took about 3 hours the other day trying to sort out my email signature online because I kept getting it wrong. You know what I mean? So, it wasn't because I'm stupid. It's just because, okay. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was kind of thinking, could we utilise, some of the innovations that we're doing, like Wear Many Hats? Occasionally could we take Wear Many Hats into a school assembly and have a panel and record a show whilst an assembly's there? Is that something that, maybe we could talk about as a partnership with the likes of IWFM, which could be beneficial?
I think there's a lot of, I think that would be really cool. I think that's a really good opportunity for people who don't know about FM to become engaged in FM, and more importantly, those people who don't know about FM being the right audience for the people that we need to get involved as well. Within our committee, we did an event last year at Sheffield Hallam University, and it was about opening up FM to university students, school students, that kind of type of thing. It was a really good event. We had probably 200 people attend. It was massive, and the amount of conversations we had with students at the university and school students about FM and the opportunities. We had really big businesses there. We had Royal Mail and people like that there as well, who were talking about apprenticeships that they offer. So I think the panel stuff would be really powerful. I
think it's a format that they understand.
And if they can ask a question about FM,
it'd be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a really cool idea.
And then you got and you get a little bit of engagement there. I mean, you couldn't do it all the time. I mean, maybe you could do one a month or something like that. But it would be interesting, I think. And it would generate interest, because not everybody wants to go to college. Not everybody wants to go to university. People want to do different things.
Yeah.
And I think it's our responsibility, not just as an industry, but just human beings, because, YTS schemes are gone, aren't they? You know what I mean? Things like that. Apprenticeships are very different now to what they were 30, 40 years ago. So we've got to create those pathways. We've got to engage with them, and they're not going to see about FM on TikTok. No, unless Wear Many Hats becomes incredibly famous, and
who knows after this,
the youngsters start watching it.
Yeah. Who knows? I'll get it on TikTok. If somebody teaches me how to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll have a word with my 13-year-old.
Yeah. Cheers.
Here, Ollie, do us a favour. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Really, really interesting chat with regards to the work that you're doing with IWFM. So let's move on to a couple of other subjects now that we like to talk about. First one being ESG. Obviously, ESG is incredibly important, not just for our industry, but for every industry. Let's be honest. How do you see ESG impact? Because I think we're quite good at it, Wayne. When you compare us against other industries, we're not the top, but we're nowhere near the bottom. I think we do it quite well. So do service partners as well, to be fair. How do you see it impacting the industry in, let's say, the next 5 years?
to touch on what you're saying in terms of as an industry, we're quite good at ESG, and I think that's because it's ingrained in what we do. So we're, as a facilities manager in a business, I'm looking at energy, I'm looking at waste, I'm looking at all these kind of things, and the business is looking at me to look at those, because that's where we can spend some money and manage some money and that kind of type of stuff. So I think as an industry, we're naturally born into it. I think it's key. How that impacts our industry over the next 5 years, I think, will come through the development of technology. So I'm really intrigued at the moment, looking at some of this smart building stuff that's going around, and how we can use sensors to manage utilities and that kind of type stuff. And I think the development of artificial intelligence will make that really, really cool.
That's kind of my next question.
All right, okay.
So go on, fire on it.
Yeah. So for me, artificial intelligence and these smart sensors will be the future of FM. We'll be able to be more proactive within the facilities management piece. But actually, I think we'll be able to save a lot of energy and really become a greener industry as a whole and country as a whole because of it. And I think as a industry, we need to recognise our part that we play in becoming a carbon neutral, carbon zero country in years to come. Because every company that's big enough will have a facilities manager that will be looking at their energy consumption, will be looking at how much F-gas they've got, or leaking, or waste, or all these kind of type of things.
Water, everything.
All the things that we look at. So I think as an industry, it's another example for us to shine and come out of the shadows and show our value to businesses.
Yeah, of course. Okay. It's absolutely brilliant. All right. One last question.
All good.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you like doing outside of work? Tell us about, you've got, obviously you mentioned your wife, you've got your family. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I've got a wife and 2 kids, and I'm very proud of our little family. We've had some hard times in terms of, but we always bounce back, which is really cool. And
well, obviously I've met your lovely wife.
Yes,
big hello to her.
Yeah. She will be listening. Yeah. She doesn't have a choice.
It's going on record. It's going on loop in the car.
Yes. Yeah. And the children will be listening several times. Just get the viewing numbers up.
Do you understand what Daddy does yet? No.
Nobody does understand what a facilities manager. What's a facilities manager? We look after buildings.
Exactly. Yeah.
We wife and 2 children, and we moved house recently, so we now live East Yorkshire. So we've got a bit of a land. We got some chickens, and
how many?
We've got 4.
Yeah, are they laying?
Not anymore.
Oh, really? They stopped? Why?
Yeah, winter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they don't like being cold, so
no. Get them in the house. Get fire on.
I live in Yorkshire. We don't put fire on.
God, no. Right.
Don't put the heating on.
It's got to be -10.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What do you mean? Put another jumper on.
Still shorts weather up now.
Exactly.
And I just like being outdoors, and everything I can do outdoors, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And I'm quite adventurous, so I'll do anything I can do outdoors. And I quite like going on holiday.
Yeah, so, you do. I know. I remember. Yeah. Like a cruise, don't you?
I do like a cruise. Yeah. So been on a couple this year. I've been to Norway, and
I remember you telling me that was amazing, though, wasn't it?
It was good. Yeah, Norway was spectacular. Yeah, it's one of those moments where you wake up every morning and you think, wow, look at those views again.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do that.
It was good. It was really cool.
Because he was down the fjords, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was a proper sea, though. We had 15-metre waves on the way up. It was brilliant.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. And what about, did you get a bit of fishing or like that? Do you like a bit of fishing?
Yeah. So part of my outdoorsy stuff, I quite like going fishing. So, me and my son will go for one day and come home 4 days later, because he absolutely loves it as well. So it's really good father-son time. I do the same thing with my boy. Yeah, we love it. Yeah, it's nice just being out and about and being out in nature, and it's something almost rustic about it as well. So.
Yeah, I like it. It's like man v beast, isn't it? There's a little bit of...
Yeah, I'm not so good at catching beasts, but
I'm all right. I tried to take my daughter, my 13-year-old. Right. She couldn't get phone signal, so she managed one night camping. Yeah. And then just whinge the rest of the time.
Yeah, the iPad.
Boy loves it. Loves it, but the Holly not so much.
No,
I'm afraid.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Well, listen, Wayne, what an absolutely fantastic podcast.
It's been an honour. Thank you very much.
How have you found it?
It's been great. Yeah, no, it's been really good. Thank you for asking the questions you asked. I think there's some really good stuff there and some key messages I want to get out there in terms of the industry as well. So thank you.
Well, I don't think we missed anything. I think, thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we'll have a good time tonight.
Candlelight dinner.
Good stuff. All right, Wear Many Hats listeners, I'd like to thank Wayne for joining us today. It's been another fantastic episode, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.